Welcome, everybody. Thank you for tuning in. We are on Facebook Live. We have some people on Zoom. I have several people here listening behind me. And what I wanted to do today is just inspire some of you and help you understand the process of being a good rental property owner, and to encourage you to leverage some of the money you've made in real estate over the last few years into other cash flow, other investments for yourself. So that is the point of today, is to inspire area and to hopefully allow you. Already having technical difficulties. I apologize. Probably too many things running at one time. Can you all see me okay, Sean? We all good?
Yeah, we're good.
You can see my screen okay?
You're cutting in and out a little bit.
Am I?
Sure.
I might have to go off the Facebook then. Probably too much stuff streaming, right?
Yep.
That better now?
This is the issue. Yes.
Cool. Good. Well, we'll let it roll. And if I have to get off one of the broadcasts, I will. I want the people that are here live on Zoom to get the majority of this. So this is the real estate end game. So I want to show you how I've leveraged some of the money I've made in my primary homes to turn into rental properties. We have some past clients on. We have some future real estate investors. I see a few realtors on, so all are welcome. And once again, today is to give you just a master class on investing within real estate outside of your primary home. So that's what today is all about. First, I have been investing in real estate since 2004. Right. So since 2004, I've seen the good of investing in real estate. I saw the financial crisis. I saw 2020 and 2021. I have seen a lot within my now, let's see, close to 23 years of being a real estate investor. I've inspired clients to do the same. And really, we have just seen close to 4,000 transactions in my 22 years of being a real estate investor and doing mortgages. So that is what I wanted to share with you today. And I might have to shut down my streaming because I am not able to get through my PowerPoint. It is not pulling up. So I apologize. It was working just fine right before I got on. So let me try this again. So thank you all for being on today. All right, let's try this again. Share my screen. Here we go. Can y'all see that okay? Sean, we good?
Yep.
You tell me if it's not good, okay? You be my spotter today.
Yes. Will do.
So first of all, my why, 21 years in mortgage business. I used to think after I had a few properties go wrong before the financial crisis that I would never get into real estate again. I was scared. I went really fast, really hard right away. I did not do it scaled. I just thought any property was a good investment. I didn't look at the numbers. I had no analytics behind it. But I've learned over time that you have to be diversified in everything you do financially, right? So my why is everyone you see on the screen. Those are my twins, Nora and Colette. They each have a property that is owned. It is on a 15-year loan. They are 7 years old. There's 13 years left on them. So when they're 20, the home will be paid off, right? So by the way, we've been accelerating the payments, they'll be paid off before 13 years. So right around the time that they're in college, they can take that money, use it for their own rent at their college. They cannot use it and hopefully got scholarships. I do have a 529 college plan as a another source of income for them that we've been saving within, or they can sell the properties when they're paid off because they're theirs. Cool. So I like one strategy of buying a home, putting it on a 15-year note. I think if you do that by the time your kids are 5, you'll have a great college plan for them. We also had to do another one recently because we had a little surprise addition to our family. So at the young age of 42 years old, almost 43, we had Parker and Lubin. So quite the surprise, considering we couldn't have kids naturally. We were told that for years. We did IVF for the twins, had them premature. They were in the hospital 110 weeks. And then the miraculous Parker and Lubin showed up with no IVF, no, basically a medical miracle. So we always say the twins got all of our best qualities combined, and our surprise baby got all of our worst qualities combined. So we're not quite sure if she's going to go to college yet, based on how she is at age 3, but we still have the backup plan in place. So that's my why. That's why I do it. Not only just to have a future for Kristen and I and some cash flow in retirement, but as a backup plan for their college. What I learned during the financial crisis is sometimes some markets go sour. I don't want to just depend on the 529 plan, because if the stock market was like last year and my girl's in college, I'm not going to pull from that bucket of money. I'm more likely to pull from the cash flow of the investment properties. Cool. So I appreciate you all being on. What I want you to first know is it's not all sunshine and rainbows. If it wasn't a risk, anyone would do it. If it wasn't a risk, anyone and everyone would do it. So anyone that bought real estate during 2008, Sean Bleeker, what and they still hold it, what are they happy with now?
How much the prices of houses have gone up.
Yeah, how much their property's worth, how much cash they probably made. With rent skyrocketing, they've probably come to close to paying off their loan by now if they took that extra money and put it towards their mortgage. They're very, very happy with their purchase. Right? Now, how old were you in 2008?
I would have just been going into college, or just been graduating high school.
Just
So,
been graduating
18.
high school? Right. So your mom's in real estate. Sean's mom, Betty, is one of our best realtors. How scary was it during 2008?
It was pretty scary.
Yeah, so
Yeah,
it was a
very
huge
scary.
risk for people to buy property in, but now those people that took that risk have been paid and paid off handsomely. And that's the first thing I want you to know is the risks will pay off over time. You just have to allow them time and not panic if the market goes backwards like it did in 07 through about 2012. Cool. So I owned a property then. I'm pretty good at mortgages. I'm a pretty savvy investor. I swear to God, I bought this property, and 2 days after I bought it, Lehman Brothers collapsed, which is one of the biggest financial events of our time. And the property was worth half of what I bought it for within 3 months after that, right? So I never panicked. I actually just sold the property 2 years ago. The property was worth about half of what I paid for it for about 5 years. It never fully recovered for 10 years. But owning the property almost 16 years, I made $260,000 on the sale, right? So I never cared. The rental income covered my cost. I never cared about the value until it was time to sell. And I just waited it out until I thought it made sense to sell. And looking back, I should have waited another year. I sold it in 2020. The market was red hot. I sold it at that time. I could have waited till 2021 and got more. So I probably was a little premature in it. Cool. So today's agenda, I want to give you a beginner's guide to real estate investing. I'm going to break the class into about 3 chapters. This should last about 50 minutes, and I will give you time to answer questions or ask questions that I can hopefully answer, because this is very technical. There are some technical terms. I will try to not go too fast. I will send this to anyone that has it, and I'm happy to do a follow-up meeting one-on-one with any of you that have interest in this. Cool. So the outline is, what does the purchase process look like? What does the purchase process look like? And steps that you want to take to ensure you're making a good purchase. Number two, what does the financing and the property taxes and overall taxes look like? You got to figure property taxes. You got to think about income taxes. You got to know how you're going to file.
Chad, you just dropped
Yep.
audio and visual.
Okay. Can you hear me okay?
Yeah, we got audio back.
We lost you, Chad. You're back.
Chad, you are back. We can see you.
You can see me now?
Yeah.
Can you hear me okay?
Yep.
Cool.
Yep.
Okay, I'm going to take that down. Sorry about that. So let me get back to the spot. Sorry for the technical difficulties. There we go. All right. Sorry about that. Chapter 3, we are going to go over managing and exiting the investment. So when is the good time to sell? And last thing, I want to wrap up with some resources and books. This won't be the only thing you go through to take these steps. So that is the agenda for today. That is what I want to go over. Cool. So who am I and why should you listen to me? I think there are so many resources out there, people talking on social media, videos I see from mortgage lenders and realtors, people giving opinions that candidly shouldn't, right? They haven't been through this. They haven't achieved success in these areas. They're talking about it, but it's a pipe dream for them. I always qualify anyone I listen to, that I read. If I'm going to read a book, I research the author to make sure they've been successful in that field. I don't just say, hey, it's a good book, I'm going to listen to them. I see what they've done to be successful. What's their net worth? What businesses have they run? How successful have they been? So I always just want to qualify myself. Please know this isn't meant to impress you. It's to impress upon you. I'm an expert in this field. I've been through this myself and I've had success in this field. So I am a husband, I'm a father, I'm a leader within the mortgage industry, and I am a real estate investor. I am a mortgage coach and consultant to some of the top loan officers in the entire country. I have multi-millions both in the stock market, 6 million to be exact in the stock market, and 7 million within real estate. So I have multi-millions within both markets that I've been successful in investing. I've invested in single family homes, multifamily homes, farmland, vacation rentals, rehab flips, and recently some commercial space. Between my personal holdings and funds that I'm a part of, we have over 70 doors now that we have invested in. So there's been over 70 properties, and when I combine them all together, we're right around 100 properties that I've had some sort of ownership interest in. So I'm not just some guy that has one rental property trying to tell you how to do it. We've had years and years of success of investing within real estate. Cool. So what's the first thing that you want to do? Where do we get started? we want to look at the proximity to your home. So you want to have things within your local market or that you're close enough to go visit, okay? You don't want to have something out in California unless you plan to give up some of your profits to have a management company. So you want to stay within your local market as much as possible. You want to know what type of income and employment characteristics that are in that area, right? If there's a new industry moving to that area, get in the forefront of it. Grand Rapids, Michigan is an excellent just case study of this. They have several larger just corporations that have moved there. And if you got in at the ground floor, 2012, your investment would have blown up. Amway is there, lots of educational. I can't think of all the companies that are there, but that is a great just case study of a market that has done really, really well with innovation and really industry moving there. What's the local housing market like? How stable is it? What's the percentage of owners in the area to renters? What are the local taxes? What are the rental regulations? What type of schools do they have there? What's the safety like? And what's the flooding and or environmental issues you might have to face? Cool. So those are all things that you want to consider when you're purchasing your first investment property. Now, what type of properties can you look at? There's single family homes. Okay. There are condos and townhomes. These are the different property types. There's the favorite of many, a multifamily. You'll see a lot of people get their first investment property by buying a 4-unit, 3-unit, 2-unit property, living in one, renting the other out, doing an FHA loan at 3.5% down, doing a conventional loan at 15% down. And then within a couple of years, they exit that unit, go buy another property, and then they have a whole building to themselves. That's a strategy a lot of people use for their first investment properties, right? If our job market gets bad, people say we're in a recession. We probably are by every definition besides corporate profits and the job market. Those two things are very strong. So that's avoiding us from going through a recession. But if we do and people stop being able to pay their mortgages, like in 07 and 08, we start seeing those massive job losses and a worse economy than we're already in. There'll be some short sale and foreclosure opportunities. Distressed properties. If you or someone you know can fix up properties and do a lot of the DIY work on the property, you could be a real estate investor that makes a lot of money. You can do the work yourself, or you have access to good crews that can. That is a tough thing to come by these days. So if you can find distressed properties, fix them up, rent them out, you got a leg up over your competition. Short-term rentals. I have one that I just came back to. I love it. I love it. I leveraged my property and all the money I've made over the last 3 years in real estate. I put that money down on a vacation rental. It has cash flowed. It has covered all my expenses, and I get to use the property about 40% of the time. So I get a free vacation home that I get all the property appreciation for while other people pay for it. Pretty nice. And I'll teach you a little bit more about how I did that. So vacation rentals, you can use VRBO, which I like better than Airbnb. They're a little more unit owner friendly than Airbnb is. So those are the services that you can use to rent out your short-term rental. Now, what definitions do you need to know and what calculations do you have to be good with? You have to be good at math to do investment properties, okay? So the nice thing we have now is we have software that does this all for us. We have calculators that do this for us. You don't have to know it all how to do by hand, but I'm going to teach you how to do it by hand. Okay, so what are the terms that you need to know? Well, first and foremost, you need to know cap rate, and I'll tell you what that is in a second. You need to know GRM. I'll go over that in a second. You need to know cash on cash. You need to know my favorite measure, ROI, and you need to know what resources, how you can determine this. Cool? So cap rate, let's start there. Okay, you're gonna want to take some notes. Okay, cap rate is the capitalization rate. Okay, you can see our teeter totter here. How many remember a teeter totter as a kid? Right? You want the value to be the heavier weight. So income divided by the rate equals your value. Income divided by rate equals value. Income divided by value equals your cap rate. Value times your cap rate equals your income. Okay, so I'll let that stand there in case you want to take a picture of this. We'll come back to it here shortly. So that is how you determine your cap rate. Very important measure of whether to buy a property or not. Cool. Gross rent multiplier, or GRM, gross rent multiplier. It's the number of years that the property would take to pay for itself in gross received rents. Okay, the lower that number, the better. The lower that number, the better. Cool. Return on investment, or ROI. It measures how effectively capital is being used to generate a profit. Okay. Net gain. Net gain. Gain less expenses divided by the cost of the investment. So how much the property is worth versus what you bought it for, divided by the cost of the investment. That equals your ROI. Keep in mind that the net gain will factor in your annual pre-tax cash flow and your appreciation. Okay, so I'm going to go through those back again. Okay. So capitalization rate. Okay, you need to know the cap rate. And Wall Street Journal has some great calculators for these guys. Okay, so capitalization rate, GRM, gross rent multiplier, cash on cash return. I skipped one, cash on cash return. So it's cash flow divided by initial equity, or your down payment is cash on cash. That calculates the cash income earned on the property, earned on the cash invested in the property. So just to give you an example on that, if a property was priced out at $1 million, the investor bought it for $1 million, and they put $200,000 down, that would be a loan for $800,000. The annual before tax cash flow is $18,000. So this is the cash flow before taxes and after loan payment. Okay, so you take that $18,000 divided by the $200,000 initial investment. Cool. Should be about a 9% cash on cash return. I'm happy with anything over 7.5 there. Very, very good measure. Cool. And then once again is ROI. ROI. Okay. ROI measures how effectively capital is being used to generate a profit. This is my number one. I got to get a good ROI. Cool. Any questions on those measures? My advice would be a couple of things. Especially for short-term rentals, AirDNA is a great software to determine what the rental income is going to be. So use that. Wall Street Journal has some great calculators with all of these. Okay. Do further research than what I'm just giving you to see what other experts think these numbers need to be at. My main one is my cash on cash needs to be above 7.5, and my ROI needs to be above 8. Okay. And why that is, I feel I can always get that in the stock market over time. And I'd rather just put the money in the stock market if it's not better than that, because it's easier. I push a button and I own a stock. I push another button and I sell the stock. I have the money right away. If I need to sell one of my real estate holdings, it could take up to 6 months for me to get my money. So the stock market's much more liquid. The real estate market's a little safer and more conservative of a return. So that's why I believe in having both. Okay. So that's the math. That's kind of the boring part. It's a whole different class by itself that I will have next time to go over what I look for in these areas. Okay. So the second part of this, what ownership structures should you have? Limited liability corporation is the number one used tool, or an LLC. LegalZoom, you can just set up your own LLC. You can close in an LLC with a lot of different mortgages. You can put the LLC on title. This eliminates liability from you. Okay, that way it's owned by a business, not owned by you. General partnership agreement, if you have a partner. Limited partnership agreement. Sole proprietor, which means you just own it on your own. Once you start having 10 to 15 properties, you should have a real estate holding through an S Corp or a C Corp. Okay, once you get really big, usually this is over about 100 holdings, you can consider a REIT, which is a real estate fund. And you can also do land trusts. Okay, so just to kind of hit on this a little bit more, a limited liability company combines the pass-through taxation of a partnership or a sole proprietorship. And then it has limited liability on you, the liabilities on the business. So if you were to be sued, the business could only be sued for those assets. Okay. That's why a lot of people set up an LLC for each property that they own, so other properties can't be risked. General partnership. It's an association of people created by an agreement, proof of existence. It's a basic form of partnership under common law. Limited partnership is similar to a general, except that it must have one general partner and one limited partner. Sole proprietor is an enterprise owned by one person, ran by one person, in which there is no legal distinction between a company and the person, right? So the person is the company. Opens you up to some liability, in my opinion. S Corp, it's taxed under a subchapter S, and in general, S Corps do not pay income taxes. Okay. C Corp is a corporation that is taxed separately from its owner. And once again, a REIT is a real estate investment trust. It's a company that you start that owns in most cases, and operates income producing real estate, right? So it starts kicking out some major cash flow, which usually it makes sense about over 100 units owned, where you would want to set up a REIT, and you would need an attorney to do that. Cool. And then a land trust, typically these trusts tie real estate ownership that are used for real estate planning purposes, and it helps manage the property during a owner's lifetime. So those are called land trusts. So what type of financing options do you have to purchase these properties? Number one, you can use a local or regional bank. Cool. Typically has the most constricted guidelines. Sometimes the regional banks are a little bit looser. not usually the choice of a lot of investors unless they have a lot of assets at that bank. Especially some of the smaller banks, credit unions, if you keep a lot of assets there, they might be a little more lax on the lending with you than a big bank would. There's mortgage brokers and bankers. That's what I am. That's what some of the people are that invited you to this meeting are. We have access to a lot of different mortgage investors. That means we can kind of find the best guidelines for your situation. We can shop all the big mortgage investors out there and see who's going to fit your needs best. Cool. That's probably the number one place that most investors go, is to someone like a broker or a correspondent lender like a cross-country mortgage or a guaranteed rate or a Fairway. Those are some of the better companies to handle investors. Until you start getting bigger, then you might want to go back to the regional banks after about 10 properties owned. There's private lenders or hard money lenders. We have access to those as well. A lot of brokers do as well. These are, you don't qualify under what's called a conventional loan and you need some sort of portfolio to buy the property. A good example of this would be our debt service coverage ratio loan, where we actually just use the rent of the property to qualify for the purchase, not your income. So this works well for a lot of investors that make their tax returns look as low as possible so they don't have tax liability, but they can still qualify to buy more real estate. That's one of the favorites within our rental portfolio that we use. Sometimes you can get seller financing, especially at the current interest rate. Sometime a seller will say, hey, I'll lend you the money for 7%, right? It's better than you're going to get on an investor loan right now. Call investor loans 7.75 to 8.25 right now on a conventional 30-year fix. Sometimes you can find seller financing where they'll finance it for you, and you pay them back over time. Home equity lines of credit or second mortgages. Remember, I told you on my Airbnb, I leveraged the ridiculous appreciation I had on my primary home and put that down on as the down payment on the vacation home. The tenants that rent that property for me from me on VRBO, Airbnb, will pay that second mortgage back. They've already made a big dent in it. It's a beach house, so the summer does really, really well and pays that loan down aggressively. So some people will leverage their current properties to get going in this investing game. You can also use whole life insurance. That would be a whole nother class, but there's some tax advantages of doing that. You could also do that with self-directed IRAs. I'll hit on that in a second. And then cash. Some people use cash instead of putting it into the stock market or keeping it in their savings. So those are all the ways that you guys can finance your first rental property, or some of you might be on and have several. So self-directed IRAs, it's non-recourse financing. The owner can never use or occupy the property. That would create a taxable event for you on your IRA and a capital gain that you would not want to pay. No non-arm's length transactions are allowed. That means I couldn't go to buy my mother's house. That's for sale right now. That would be a non-arm's length transaction. It has to be proven that you don't know the seller of the property. At retirement on the self-directed IRA, you can withdraw from the IRA and tax for the taxes due on the value of the property. Okay, the expenses are always paid by the IRA for the property. So you can do this as a retirement fund for yourself. Income returns remain with the IRA. So all of the cash flow goes back to the IRA to be withdrawn at age 59 and a half, just like an IRA in the stock market. You can use a custodian and you can do a checkbook IRA. So those are all the things that you can do through a self-directed IRA. Cool. So some pretty nice opportunities to save for your retirement through real estate. Okay. Now, what do we have to know about financing? We have to know the basics, the character, the capital, the capacity, the conditions, and the collateral. That is the five C's of underwriting basics. So you have to know the character, the capital, the capacity, the conditions, and the collateral. Cool. So the first thing to know is your ratios. There are two different ratios within real estate. There's your debt to income ratio. That's the monthly debt payments, including this investment property, versus grossly monthly income. This typically has to be somewhere below 43 to 45%. Now, the good news on a rental property, you can use the market rents of that area to qualify. So you can put on this bottom portion the rent that the property is going to receive to help you qualify on that ratio. Okay, loan to value ratio. On an investment property, you're going to put at least 15% down. The better interest rates are 25 to 30% down. Typical is 20 to 25%, but you can put as little as 15% down. Now, some people use a little life hack. I use this myself. My first 4 properties, I lived in for 2-3 years at max. I would be done living there. I'd go buy a new one and I would rent that place out. And I kept doing this over and over and over as I was a single man. And yes, you saw my beautiful wife at the beginning. It took me to mature till 34 years old before I could attract a good woman. So I lived the single life for a while, and the only thing it was good for is to accumulate some real estate. So the debt to income ratios matter, the loan to value ratios matter. Okay. Now, how do taxes fit into that? Right? There's 2 different taxes that we got to consider. There's active and there's passive. Okay, so there's income tax deductions that you get from owning rental property. You can write off all of the mortgage interest. You can write off all the expenses. The number one write-off is depreciation of the property, right? So a lot of people think they're going to make more money and get taxed more with rental income. There's some very nice tax advantages to write off when you own rental property, right? That's cost versus recovery is the depreciation, right? One way to avoid if you sell a rental property. So I sold the rental property I told you about that I bought right at the height of the real estate market in 2007 and right when the market collapsed, like 2 days after I closed, right? I told you I made about 250 grand on that sale, right? I did a 1031 exchange, which means I moved that $250,000 I made to a different property. So I never paid capital gains on it. Now, if I wouldn't have, I would have been taxed capital gains somewhere between about 0 and 20%. You get hit pretty hard on that money. Okay, so you want to avoid it at all costs of rolling that to another property. That's called a 1031 exchange. Now, there's drawbacks of a 1031 exchange. You have to find the property within a certain duration. You have to close within a certain duration. So you're pushed for time to find the property to not have that taxable event. But if you prepare for it before you list and you start looking for other properties that you want to buy, it's not that hard to time it out well. Cool. So that's just a little quick education on the taxes involved in a rental property. Income classifications. Active, that's salary, wages, tips, commission. Portfolio, that's money from real estate, stock market, bonds, savings account, and passive, that's investments with no material participation. So all those things are taken into consideration as you get financing for a rental property. Okay. And we kind of already talked through these, but the income tax deductions, there's operating expenses, there's mortgage interest, there's depreciation. Okay. So depreciation, as I mentioned, is the biggest write-off typically, right? And this is how you calculate depreciation. It's residential. You get to divide it by 27.5 and the loss, and commercial by 39.5 or 39%. Okay. Some accountants will go really, really deep and use some cost segregation studies. That's mainly saved for commercial, but if you have a big flip or the beach Airbnb home I told you I own, that we did some cost segregation studies because I did a big renovation project on it. So I got a huge tax write-off my first year owning it because of the cost segregation, right? So it saved me some big taxes in 2021 when I was making a ton of money in capital gains in the stock market. So this is once again just a reason why I like money in different pools, right? I like some in real estate. I like some in the stock market. So these are the reasons why as I go through this. Capital gains taxes, I hit on this a bit, but it's original basis plus the cap improvement minus the cost recovery, right? So if you do work to the place, make sure you hold on to all the receipts, all the invoices, because you get to write off what you put into the home. So you don't get hit on that on a capital gain, okay? Probably starting to lose some of you. So I will pull up for some questions here in a second. But just to hit on the 1031 exchange a little bit more, it defers capital gain taxes on an exchange of a property. It's used in a trade or business to hold the investment and not get hit with the capital gains. Okay, 45 days to replace or to identify the replacement of the property. Okay, and when you got to close goes back and forth, but it's typically it's either 90 or 120 days. I should have looked that up for this. Anyone knows? CMR, do you know? It's a 90 or 120. I always forget. We'll go with 90 because that's quicker, but it's either 90 or 120. So uses, it increases equity by deferring capital gains, so you're not getting hit on that. It allows you to acquire property with more appreciation potential, and you can consolidate your assets. So sometimes, guys, I'll see people make a big move, like they'll sell 4, 5, 6, 7 properties, especially after the last couple of years and all the real estate appreciation and higher sales. They'll take several properties, do a 1031 and buy a commercial building, right? Or buy a mixed use property, and they'll take 4 or 5 properties and go into something bigger, right? But you got to time this all up very well, and it's a little stressful. We've handled those types of transactions before. Cool. Good, there it is. There's the question time. So if you'd like to ask questions, please unmute yourself.
For somebody buying their first Airbnb, what would you recommend for a title holding? I know you talked about like LLCs, S corps, all that stuff. As far as the different types of titling on that, if it's like just a first Airbnb, do you recommend personal name? Put a starting LLC for that. What would you say?
First one, whatever gets you the best interest rate on the loan. You can use a classification as a second home still on Airbnb, VRBOs. So I would do it in your personal name. And as you acquire 2 or 3, I would start to move it to a trust or to an LLC. So I recently just moved all my properties to one real estate holding, and they each have their own LLC. So each property has their own LLC, but there's one entity that owns all of the real estate. That make sense?
Yep, that makes sense.
I'd keep it in your personal name because that will give you the best interest rate. But if it's close between a second home and investment property rate, that's kind of been going back and forth of late. If it's close, I would do it in an LLC. But if it gives you a sizable break on the interest rate to call it a second home, I would just take the lower rate. Great question. Other questions? Take one more swig of water.
I didn't have myself unmuted. Your question on the 1031 exchange is the 180 days.
It's 180 days.
Yeah, 45 to identify it, 180 days to close.
So I was off. Sorry, I thought it was 120.
You might have been thinking from the date of the end of the date to identify.
Okay, yeah,
It's about 120 days roughly.
that
So-
is about 120. Yeah, that is what I was thinking. Thank you. Cool. Good. So that's kind of the boring stuff. Let's get into some of the exciting stuff. Managing and exiting the investment. So are you going to self-manage or are you going to have a property manager, right? I will tell you my initial frustrations and why I got completely out of rental properties, besides a few of them, is because of how much of a distraction it was. And how much time it took me and how difficult tenants were to deal with. I hated it, right? So I always said, hey, my stockbroker never calls me at 2:30 in the morning and tells me there's a flood upstairs with some crazy party going on in my unit, but I have had that call as a real estate owner, right? I've never walked into my stockbroker's or my financial advisor's office and there were drugs everywhere. I have done that at one of my rental properties, right? And some of the people that were there, I questioned my safety a little bit. So it is a different animal, especially if you're going to self-manage it. Tenants are the most important thing. My best advice I could give you is if you're going to self-manage, hire a realtor to find the tenants, because they have a dialed in process where they check credit. They do a background check. They're with people all the time that are homeowners or renters. They know who a good tenant is. You do not. And I have made some tenant mistakes, and it has cost me all of the money that could have been made on the property. So one or two bad tenants can cost you a lot of money and a lot of frustration and some fines if you're in a homeowners association. So just be mindful of that. Property managers, although they eat into some of your profits, it's a beautiful thing because you have to do very little. So all of my short-term rental properties are with a property manager. I do nothing besides show up. They arrange the cleaning. It has all the nice toiletries there. Has the soft toilet paper for your tushy. It smells good when you walk in. All the sand from the beach is gone. I don't have anything I have to deal with when I'm there or when tenants are renting it. They just take care of it for me, but they charge 20% to take care of it. So they eat into your profit margin. So you got to see what you're looking to get out of this. Now, those properties, I'm just looking for the long-term appreciation. I want the real estate holding within my family. We will plan to use them for years and years and years. And I'm not looking to make a lot of cash flow. I'm looking to make money long-term on the appreciation of the property and get to use it myself as a vacation home. So that was my goal within those properties, right? Some of the rental properties, I just want cash flow. I want to make as much rent as I can. I want my mortgage paid down as rapidly as possible. And then I want that money coming in just as pure cash flow. So you got to assess your goals for the property and what you want and determine that around the lifestyle that you want, because it can impact your lifestyle. So I just like property management, and exiting the property comes with some trusted realtor partners that I trust that will tell me when they think the property's at the top of the market, or they think something's coming into that market that could cause real estate values to go down. Okay. That happened in a couple of my Chicago holdings. Some things happened in the neighborhood. Some taxes went up. I was having diminishing returns. I saw what the property was worth. I just decided to exit at that time and take my money and put it into something else in some different areas. So I think if it's an area you're going to visit a lot, or you have a good property manager in, then you should absolutely be diversified if you do several properties. Okay. So self-managed, once again, think about the time required. Can you say no to a tenant right? You have to be tough. It's your property, it's your holding, right? Are you willing to have healthy conflict? Sometimes it goes to unhealthy conflict because it's your property. You're the boss, you're in charge. Are you going to be good at it? Can you separate the emotion? Right? When I saw one of my places trashed, I didn't do a very good job of separating my emotions of how frustrated I was with the tenants that they had done that to my property. So usually I'm good at separating emotions, but I can think of times where I have not been. Are you organized enough to embrace the bookkeeping? Right? How close are you to the property? Right? Some of my Airbnbs are 4 hours away. We go and visit them, but I can't be there if the heater goes out. Right? I can't be there. The AC went out when we were there visiting this past weekend. Luckily, I was there. But if I wouldn't have been, I would have called the property manager. Okay. How's your temperament? Right? Are you chill or are you pretty high strung like I am? Right? It's just better for me to have property managers. Are you diligent in doing the work? Right? Are you going to upkeep the property or do you need to pay to have someone to do that for you? Are you good at working with people versus always playing hardball? So those are things just to ask yourself. The property managers, I would get referrals for them. There's a really great institute called the Institute of Real Estate Management. They have recommendations and reviews of a lot of the bigger property managers. There's a national association called the National Association of Residential Property Managers. Make sure they're within that association because there's rules and standards that they have to abide by. So do your homework before you pick a property manager. I would talk through their process with them. I interviewed 3. I made them all get in Zoom. I asked them questions I interviewed them like I would someone interviewing for a job with me, right? Some of my biggest assets is real estate. I'm going to walk them through the process and make sure they're going to look out for my asset. I make sure I clearly state my goals with them and what my expectations are. I'm clear on what their management fee was, right? I never think cheap is the best. I never think cheap is the best. I would rather pay more for them to manage the property and know I'm getting someone great that's going to look out for my asset and maybe pay 2 or 3% more and know it's taken care of than to chintz on who the property manager is and get someone that's not going to perform the way I want them to. What's their process for work orders and expenses? Are they going to always be calling you for a credit card or will they float it and then put it on your account? My property managers just float it and then put it on account and I settle it up with them at the end of every month. I get 0 calls during the month. I'm never bothered. They just handle it. So also look at their past vacancy and turnover, especially on short-term rentals. Look and see how good they've been in bookings. That's the most important thing in short-term rentals and really long-term rentals, that they're getting good tenants. So ask good questions around that. I would meet with the team. And I would just make sure that the personality fit is a good match. Right. So I purposely will send them some text messages late at night at like 9:30, 10 o'clock, see if they get annoyed by it. I try and think of the worst case scenario and act that way when I'm interviewing them and when I'm talking to them initially to see how they respond to it. Right. So I put them through some stress before I hire them. What is the main thing that they do? Maintenance, number 1. Tenant maintenance. They field those calls, right? It sucks to get those calls, guys. I see some of my Chicago past clients on when it's below 0 and the heat goes out and it's 2 a.m. and you have someone that has a apartment or a condo where it's 55, 60 degrees in it. You don't get to wait till the morning, right? That's real. I've been through that. So it's nice to have someone take that off. See what sort of software they use, see what their risk management services are. Research how they're getting the tenants and what they're charging for rent and what analytics they use to make sure that they're getting top dollar for you. This is both on short-term and long-term rentals. Landlord rights and responsibility, those are super important too. Are they going to cover you? Do they have access to some attorneys if you need it? Have they been through litigation in the past? These are all key tasks that good property managers should take care of for you, and definitely the accounting and bookkeeping. Okay. See how we're doing on time. Property maintenance, regular inspections. I walk through all of my properties at least once a quarter. Okay, that's the only real involvement that I have. Okay. See who their main players are and who they use. Don't be scared to interview their vendors about how they like working with your property manager. This is a big deal, guys, of who you trust in this. Arguably, besides the numbers that you ran in the beginning and the calculations that I gave you, this is probably the second most important thing if you're going to manage the property with a property manager. So I kind of hit on that. Tenant management. This is you doing it yourself. Make sure you have a leasing and screening. Okay. Interview them. Treat it like a job interview. Check for collections. Pull their credit. Call their past references. Make sure that they give you former places that they lived. Don't be scared to ask for a cosigner or parent. Okay, someone you could go after that has some real assets if you're waffling. Okay, there is less and less and less vacancies. So if you own real estate, your asset continues to appreciate both in value and in rental income. So always protect your asset. If you're going to do it yourself, establish your process for payments and for evictions. Number one thing I could tell you is have separate accounts, never commingle funds. If you commingle funds, you can be in some big trouble, especially for some of my Chicago people on. Illinois and Chicago is very, very tenant leaning. They're always going to lean towards the tenant. The landlord's the bad guy in their eyes. Right? So make sure you have a checklist of everything that you need to do. This is why I like having property managers. Know how to evict. Consult someone if you need to evict. Right? I evicted someone and I did not do it right. Luckily, the case got dismissed, but if it would have went through courts, we settled outside of court, I would have lost. I evicted them improperly, and I could have been in some big trouble. Luckily, they settled with me because my attorney said, you better settle and figure this out. You're in a lot of trouble. Cool. I thought I could just throw anyone out the second that they didn't pay. Not the case. Cool. So some things to learn as you go through this process. Software management. There's a lot of software services out there for all of this. So you can create your own process, and there's a lot of tools out there. Okay, so let me just help you through some of the initial setup. You got to have some bank accounts, both operating, in which money goes into and bills go out. I would recommend having 3 accounts: a bill paying checking account, accounts receivable account that only the rent goes into. So you just can pull up that account and all you see is their deposits. And then a savings account, which is tied to your bill paying checking account for overdrafts and just to have some reserves. I would keep 6 months of expenses in a cash account. Okay, so some things you have to plan for: economic changes, avoid over leveraging. That's what got me into trouble in the early 2000s. Okay, I over leveraged. So it's okay to leverage, don't over leverage. Okay, take a property at a time. So I have that line of credit I told you about. I won't use it again until it's paid off, right? I used about 20% of my home's equity. I will pay it off and then I'll buy the next place. Okay, so you have to have disciplined systems in place. Make sure you have great insurance, and I would recommend an umbrella policy. I have a $3 million liability policy that covers me in case someone slips and falls. It's just a insurance policy that sits over the property insurance policies. It's a supplemental policy. Okay. Interest rates, always be looking for savings on rates. I think now is a great time to get into properties. The market has started to cool a bit. We saw some deals happen last fall and winter. By the spring, they were all gone, right? October, November, and December were the best months as an investor over the last 3 years, this past year. I think this fall will be some of the same. So you can get some good deals during the fall and winter that you cannot get during the spring and summer. Okay. So just some things to be aware of to avoid or to manage some of your risk. Okay. Now, how can you research rents and what you can get? MLS, you can hire a realtor that will help you out with this. Most of them will help you. If you dangle, you want to do this on some properties, they're going to go above and beyond for you if they believe they have an investor that can do several homes with them. Zillow's a place. Craigslist, you can see what your competition is. There's a lot of landlords that put their properties for rent on Craigslist. Okay. Rental Meter is an actual website. I know it sounds fake, but it's an actual website that you can use that tells you about what your property should rent for. It's really, really well done and great analytics. I'm not going to get into a ton of the legal stuff. It's a little boring, but I can send you these leases. Just put your email in the chat and I can send this to you and some of these links. Okay, but you need to know your tenant rights and responsibilities. It's super important. It's where I went wrong in my early years of investing.
Hey, Chad, we do have a question in the chat.
Okay, cool. Yeah, I'll hit some questions at the end here. Thanks for that. Lease agreements, know that you're using the most recent one. Know that you have certain dates before you can threaten eviction. This is different in different municipalities, so check that. And know that you just can't walk into the property at any time. There are different standards of how often you can visit the property and when, and how much notice you got to give the tenants. Cool. Let's see. How much does a property manager usually charge? I would say anywhere from 15 to 40%. They vary quite a bit. I'm happy anywhere under 20 if I feel they'll do a really good job. Most of them, if you got good properties and they think they're going to get more business for you, they'll settle around 20. I try and work them down to 20. Very, very good question. Got some emails here. I wrote the time down wrong and came to the meeting late. Is this recorded? Yes, it's on my Facebook Live too. So just friend me on, I'm Chad Lubin. Just friend me on Facebook and you can have access to the recording live. But yeah, Crystal, I'll be happy to send that to you. Cool. So I'm going to finish this out and take it home. We want some good accounting and bookkeeping. Once again, use a property manager or have software. I would just recommend that. Do it all throughout the year. So I do 2 things, really 3 things at month end. I run a P&L on my business to see what sort of profits I had on my business. I do a personal family budget and I check the books on all my rental properties. Okay. So those are just things I would recommend doing once a month. And collaborate with your bank accounts. So 1031 exchanges, that's one way you can sell. Partnership sales, you can leave to your heirs. That's what I'll do with my properties. I hope they stay in my family forever, but my kids or my children's children will have the right to the properties. Cool. You can do the IRAs that we talked about. Cool. So here are the ways to exit. You can do the 1031 exchange. Needs to be like kind of property. There it is. I put it in here, 45 days to 180 days. You can move up. I would recommend working with a 1031 specialist. We can refer those to you. Okay. I already talked about a lot of these resources. what I really wanted to get to, the books that I read to learn about this. So I can do this to you really quick. These are the books that inspired me to be a real estate investor. The Millionaire Next Door, I put that first because it's the best book I've ever read on creating wealth. Very laid out, simple to follow. Any of you could do it. The Richest Man in Babylon, love that book. I'm sure many of you have heard of Rich Dad, Poor Dad. Great book, great storybook. Robert Kawasaki, I've met him. He's just an outstanding man. He started the creating wealth through real estate. One of the first people to really talk about that and teach it. Think and Grow Rich, Napoleon Hill, all-time classic on creating wealth. The E-Myth Real Estate Investor by Michael Gerber, one of the best recent minds on real estate investing. The Monster Owner of Keller Williams, Gary Keller, wrote a book on the millionaire real estate investor, really well written. And I honestly don't like a lot of the stuff that he does. He knocked it out of the park with that book. It is a great book. And then The Challenge by Robert G. Allen. So I know this is a lot. There's a lot more that goes into this. If you found value in this, do me one favor. Whoever invited you here today, take your questions to them. They're my team of experts. A lot of them were on. We've helped. I think the biggest thrill we get is helping families get into homes. I think in creating a legacy for themselves and their family. I think the second biggest thrill we get is helping pay for kids' college, for people's retirements, watching some of the success stories in real estate, watching people go from working a full-time job that they didn't necessarily like. One of my clients has passed me in wealth in real estate investing, and he did it all one property at a time. And I've helped him with 90% of those properties. So it's just been amazing to watch his growth, watch him quit his full-time job and see him be a full-time landlord and to see him create wealth one property at a time. He now owns 400 some doors. So it's just, you know, the biggest thrill is always to help families out and get them in the home of their dreams. The second biggest one is to watch investors create wealth through real estate. And we're here to help you do that. I hope this inspired you. And know we have some great products and tools to help you get your first, second, third, or 500th home. So thank you guys for your time. I will hang out if there's any more questions. I got 2 minutes for questions. Any questions I can help y'all with? Hey, Crystal, good to see you on. Hey, Paulo, hope you're doing well. Lucy, thanks for coming. Emmy, Linda, Carmen, my team, thanks for being on, guys.